What's the creepiest thing that happened in your childhood? Story 1. My friends have this theory that I've been abducted because of a story I've told them. When I was 14, my family and I rented a cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico. I mean my immediate family and my second family. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my siblings, cousins and I were all messing around in the woods. They thought I was scared because I'd mentioned before that the woods scare me. Being a 14-year-old obsessed with proving my masculinity, I started walking deeper into the woods alone on a dare. I walked for about 30 minutes, letting my mind wander. Then, for some reason, I just stopped. Something felt very, very wrong. I looked around and the woods were dead silent. From what I've heard, the woods only go silent when predators are around. That freaked me out enough to head back in the opposite direction. Then I had another awful realization. It was night. I know the woods get darker quickly because of all the trees, but this was unmistakably night. After a while of walking as quietly as I could, the sounds of the woods picked up again, and I finally had the nerve to dash back to the cabin. When I got back, there was a police car outside. It was 8 o'clock. What I thought was 30 minutes had actually been about 4 hours. Now, I stay away from the woods if I can help it. Story 2. I was about 12. My mum was out getting her hair done or something, and my father and brother were grabbing food before we all went to devotional, which is basically church on a Friday night. I used to play with the two neighbor kids a lot, as they were 1 year older and 1 year younger than me. The younger one was more mischievous and had lately been grounded. I decided to hop in the shower. While I was in the bathroom undressing, I heard the younger neighbor child's mother screaming, "Stop and put it down." Then I think she went to the side of the house further from ours because I could hear yelling, but couldn't make out the words. Anyway, this argument continued as I got in the shower. I was washing my hair when I heard the back door open. My mom always came in the back door, so I was happy she was home. I heard heavy footsteps stomp upstairs, walk around for a bit, and then jiggle the handle of the bathroom door. "I'll be out in a minute," I called. Suddenly, the upstairs phone started ringing non-stop. The second it went to voicemail, it would ring again. I got out of the shower and picked up the phone. My father was on the other end. He told me to get dressed in whatever clothes were in the bathroom hamper and leave out of the front door immediately. I tried to say I needed to dry my hair and get my Bible, etc., but he said very sternly to put clothes on from the clothes bin and exit the house through the front door immediately, or there would be an ass whooping in store. I said okay, hung up, and called for my mom, who I could hear walking around downstairs. She didn't reply, but her not replying wasn't abnormal at all. As the phone rang again, I ignored it and hustled downstairs. I called to my mum that I would meet her in the car when an absurdly loud, wall-shaking knock made me drop my bag. For knocks shook the front door. "Police, open up." They asked me to step outside. They asked if I had heard anything in the last half hour. I mentioned hearing my friend being chastised. I left and got in my dad's car. On the way there, we picked up my mother from the hair salon. Come to find out, my neighbor was in an argument with her boyfriend, and he stabbed her 6 times, fleeing the scene and entering our house through the back door. My brother spotted this as they pulled up across the street and called the police, then me telling me to leave through the opposite door immediately. So that's the time a murderer almost walked in on me in the shower. Fun times. Story 3. Not in my childhood, but someone else's. There was a playground at the start of a trail where I used to ride my bike. I'd stopped to get some water when I heard a man ask, "I've lost my dog, will you help me look for it?" I turned around and saw a guy with a leash talking to a little girl who looked about 11. Before she could answer, I said, "Hey, I'll help you," in as friendly a voice as I could. I couldn't believe someone was trying this, but I wanted to stay friendly in case he really had lost his dog. I told the kid to go play, and the guy started walking off. I followed the guy and kept talking, keeping things friendly as if I believed he needed help finding a dog. I asked his name and where he was from, but he ignored me. He got in a car and drove off, but I made a note of what he looked like and his license plate number. Then I called the cops. Turns out the guy was a DNA match for 2 cases of child abuse, and the cops said I broke the case for them. He was being charged with attempted kidnapping as well, so I had to testify in court. The guy was a total creep. Hope he got what he deserved in prison. Story 4. I had a dream that my dad was in the hospital. They were jabbing something in his ear and it was bleeding. He seemed like he was in so much pain. I walked up to him and asked what happened, and he told me, "I got in a car wreck. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. I woke up bawling my eyes out." When I woke up, I told my dad about the dream and hugged him. I told him to be careful while driving that day. At 2:00 p.m., a drunk driver rammed into the back of his car at 80 miles per hour. The guy drove away and my dad couldn't get his license plate, so we had to pay for all the damages. My dad was like, "WTF, I put my seatbelt on because of your dream." Right after I put it on, he hit me. Insane. So my mom thinks I'm psychic and tells me not to tell her my dreams anymore. That's not the first dream to come true. Story 5. While it's not exactly from my childhood, I do have a creepy story from when I was in middle school. I wanted to get ahead in my education, so I took an extra class early in the morning, around 6 a.m. at my local high school. The time was around December and it had been snowing heavily. As I walked outside, It was still snowing lightly, and I found a spot to sit in the small courtyard entrance. I sat at the end of the flower bed on the ledge, looking out at the field of untouched snow. Suddenly I felt a light tap on my shoulder. I turned and saw a girl. She looked strange, but not alarming. I remember her appearance somewhat clearly. She had long white hair, whiter than the snow itself. Her face was incredibly pale, as if she had never seen the sun before. She politely asked if she could sit next to me, and I agreed. We started a brief conversation, mostly centered around me. She asked about my school, my goals in life, places I wanted to visit, and so on. Our chat didn't last long. I spotted my dad's car approaching. I thanked her for talking with me. She wished me a good life, and I walked off towards my dad's car. Just a few seconds later, when I sat in the car and looked out the window, she was gone. I mean completely gone. There was no trace of her. There were no footprints in the snow except mine, and the snow on the ledge where she sat remained undisturbed. I asked my dad to stop for a moment, and again, there was no sign of anyone. Somehow, she must have vanished. To this day, I have no explanation for the mysterious white-haired pale girl. Story 6. When I was about 8, my family and I went to a fast food restaurant. The restaurant had a play area. I was excited because there were no other kids there. But when my brother and I climbed to the top, I was confused to find a boy quietly sitting up there, not running around or playing, just quietly sitting. He didn't look like a grown-up, but he didn't look quite like a kid either. He got up and started following me around, asking if I wanted to play and how old I was. He was trying to chase me and tickle me, but I was mostly just getting a creepy feeling from him. He kept following me around, reaching out and trying to tickle me. Finally, I decided to lead my brother down to our parents. The boy followed us and ended up sitting next to me in the booth, right across from my parents. He continued to talk to me and tickle me. My mom eventually decided to ask where his parents were. He said, "At home. I just walked over here and felt like hanging out." My mom was shocked and asked how old he was, to which the boy responded that he was 15. My parents promptly packed up and got us the hell out of there. The older I get, the eerier it seems to think about a teenage boy sitting in that play area waiting for someone to come up. I remember that very creeped out feeling in my gut, almost as if I was in danger, quite vividly. Story 7. One day my parents picked me up from school and handed me a box. Inside was a thin, sickly kitten they had found in a dumpster. He grew into the greatest cat I've ever had. He'd even do rounds where he'd routinely check every room and make sure everyone was okay. My neighbors didn't think so. They thought he was unlucky. The one-time kitty was outside on his own. They attacked him and ruptured his spleen. He died that evening. That night, as I cried in bed, lying on my stomach, I heard the door creak open. I stopped crying and everything was still. Then I felt my blanket shift, and I distinctly remember feeling 4 individual paws as they slowly padded over, turned a circle on my back and stopped. I felt a weight on my back followed by a gentle purring. Within a minute, it was gone. I choose to believe it was my kitty checking in on me one last time. Story 8 may be more terrifying than creepy, but I have 2 stories. The first was finding my best friend in a terrible state in a tree outside his house and rushing to get his grandma to get him down. I was maybe between 6 to 10 years old. He survived, and apparently some kids in the neighborhood had done it to him. I had heard rumors it was racially motivated, but I don't know how much truth there was to that. The other was going into that same friend's backyard and finding his toddler sister chewing on broken glass with blood everywhere, and her screaming. For some god-awful reason, she was unattended, had gotten a hold of an empty glass baby food jar, smashed it, and tried to eat it. Looking back, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened that I never understood, but as I've gotten older I've realized why and what allowed these things to occur. Story 9. I was hanging out with my best friend at the time and my elder brother. We were playing by a creek and had brought my dad's golf clubs to swing at trees and have sword fights with. While we were playing, a man drove up to us in a big white van, I kid you not, tanned, asked us if we wanted to get some golf balls from the back of his van. My older brother kindly rejected his offer, but he kept insisting that we get them. This went on for a couple of minutes until we heard my dad's voice behind us. "What's going on here?" The creepy guy in the van sped off and my dad brought us back home. All of us still talk about this incident every now and then and wonder what would have happened if my dad had checked up on us. Story 10. When I was 7, I was mauled by a part chow Rottweiler mix at a friend's house. It was his neighbor's dog and it jumped the backyard fence. The owners of the dog were actually in front of the house on their steps, talking to a friend. I tried running and then fighting it off, but eventually it bit a chunk out of my leg and pulled me down. It felt like I was fighting it for an eternity, but I was getting mangled. Then, miraculously, the dog was instantly flung into the sky and out of my view. This random man heard my screams, came out of nowhere, and basically saved me from certain death. The man went to pick me up, but saw the dog was now about to attack again. He fought the dog off once more. It turned out to be the owner's friend, and he took off running past them carrying me. They seemed stunned because neither of them even moved. They just sat on the steps and watched. After he made it about yards further, the dog decided to come back after us. So this guy told me he was going to put me down for a second. He looked around for the biggest thing he could find, which happened to be a kid's plastic tricycle. He spun around twice and let it loose. It was sent spinning like a boomerang and right into the charging dog. It hit with such force that the entire tricycle exploded into dozens of pieces. As I was over his shoulder, I saw the owners finally get up, but only after the dog seemed hurt. The lady in particular seemed more concerned that the dog seemed hurt. They literally just watched the entire thing. The man was a literal superhero in disguise. Story 11. My friends and I used to hang out in a park late at night, and one time we were playing hide and seek. When I was running around looking for them, a flashlight got pointed at me and I heard, "You right there, stop." As I got closer, I saw that it was a police officer. We started talking and laughing about our track and field experiences. When my friends started showing up one by one, about 10 minutes passed and we heard a noise. The cop's partner was bringing a woman towards us in handcuffs, with dirty clothes and hair in front of her face. He told us that she had been hiding and waiting in a tree, mugging people at knife point. It was a tree in the exact direction I was running before the cop stopped me. Story 12. I had what my mom believes were possessed Cabbage Patch dolls. They were very large, like toddler-sized. They sat on a shelf next to my bed. I don't remember anything about them moving, but my mom would run into my room while I was screaming and find the dolls on the floor. Sometimes they would just be moved around in the morning. She said I told her they tried to climb into bed with me. She had to let me watch her bag them up in garbage bags and physically watch the garbage men take them away. I also got stuck in a tornado when I was young. My mom was young when she had me, so she just grabbed me and a little girl she was watching and put us in a closet and sang to us. It was loud and dark, and my mom thought we were going to die. I get so sick to my stomach when it storms now. Story 13. More weird and creepy. Maybe a little creepy. I was walking home one night from a buddy's place. I walked onto my street and saw around a dozen cats sitting in the middle of the street. Each one spaced out from the others by almost 10 feet, including my cat. I had lived in this neighborhood for most of my life and knew most of the cats on the street. Usually, the cats kept to themselves and would bolt if you got within a couple of feet of them. Not this night. They wouldn't move when I walked by them or even when a car literally drove past them. I found my cat and tried to coax him in, but he wouldn't have any of it. This is a cat that normally accepts being picked up or moved. This was the first and only time my cat had ever really bitten me and drawn blood. It never happened again. I don't know what weird cat cult they were trying to form. Everyone thought I was on crack when I talked about it until a neighbor spoke up and said she saw the same thing that night. Story 14. When I was around 13 years old, I visited my father who lived in another town 10 hours away. I took a bus. At the beginning of the journey, a creepy guy sitting 2 rows back touched my shoulder and said, "You can put your jacket on." I allow it. I answered thanks and ignored him. He then proceeded to tap me on the shoulder again and said, "You don't know me, but you will." I was already on alert, but now I was really scared. I asked the guy next to me if he would change seats so I could sit by the window and be out of sight of the creepy guy, and he did. A few minutes later, I heard the creep talking nonsense to me, but I didn't understand what he was saying. I had had enough. I went to the driver and complained. The driver, being unhelpful, said, "Well, you never know. You may marry the guy in the future." I decided to sit on the floor close to the bus door and wait for the next stop. It turns out that the guy was so drunk and annoying to everyone that he was taken off the bus. Later in the journey, some girls told me what he had said that I didn't understand. He had said that he would end my life and hide my body somewhere. A complete lunatic.